So what I know about bending is not much, but I know that water and heat are your friends. They will help you to get this job done. Hey, Glenn here. Hey, a while ago I did a strat-type guitar when I did that series on all the tools that you need to build a guitar. And you might recall, if you watched that I didn't use the original neck that I built for that guitar because I placed the tremolo cavity, the routing for the tremolo, in slightly the wrong place. And as a result, I had to take that neck out and compensate for my error by building a neck with a different scale length, and then I got everything to work. As a result, I have a spare neck. So I'm going to use it in this guitar. Now, I didn't show you this piece of work that I did, but originally the headstock was a little bit on the thin side. So what I have done is aggressively sanded it even thinner, and I'm going to put a layer of elm on the front of it because I think that will create some nice continuity with the top of the guitar body. So that's what I'm going to do now. I want to get this piece of elm down to about 3 millimeters before attaching it, or at least that needs to be the final thickness. And I'm going to be bending it, so yeah, I do want to get it thin, so I want to get it close to the final thickness. Most planers, certainly my planer and every other planer I've encountered, even drum sanders like mine, can't plane anything down that thin. I think they have I don't know what the minimum is, somewhere between, I don't know, 5 and 8 millimeters. So what I'm doing to get around that, and in the hopes that I also don't ruin this piece, is increasing the height of the piece by taping it down to a piece of MDF and then feeding that through. I've jointed one face of it flat, and now I'll just use some double-sided tape. I'll use a fair bit because I want a good strong connection here. Now, I've never fed anything through the planer using this method of trying to get a piece that's normally too thin to go through. So I don't know, I guess worst case scenario, the planer just chops it up into little pieces and I've lost it. I hope that doesn't happen. Okay, that certainly seems to be attached strongly enough. Let's give it a go. Well, there we go. That works very well. I kind of hoped it would, obviously. I don't hope that it goes badly. But that's about, or maybe even very, very slightly under. It's difficult to measure with a ruler in that way, but that's about the size I want. That's about 3 millimeters. Now I have to do some research about bending it because I'm bending it along the grain, which can be tricky. Okay, so I am going to do something I've never done before, and I need to bend this piece so that it conforms to the shape of the headstock. Of course, most of the headstock is flat, but there is that one bend there. So there would just be a tiny piece of this that is actually bent. I've located a piece of pipe that's about the right size for that radius. It's a diameter of 1 inch, so I guess that makes it a radius of ½ inch. Okay, so what I know about bending is not much, but I know that water and heat are your friends. They will help you to get this job done. The grain runs this way. I think earlier I said I'm going to bend with the grain. I wasn't quite thinking about it right. I know what I meant, but what I should have said is I'm bending it across the grain because the bend line will be there. It's easy to bend so that the bend line is the same as the grain, but it's much more difficult to bend that way. The wood is much more rigid and it feels more likely to snap. So, how am I going to do this? What I'm going to do is, I've already thought about what I'm going to do. I'm just now thinking about the practicalities thereof. I'll take off the plastic bits here because I don't want to melt anything with the heat. I have a source of water. I have a rag as well. I have a source of heat. Yeah, beyond that I'm experimenting, so we'll just see how this goes. And yeah, it's getting quite wet, but it's a thin piece that will also dry out fairly quickly. Warm this up. I had thought to bend it up by pulling this side up, but it's just actually proving easier to do the other side, and that's okay. The bend will still be the same. And the water, of course, is, well, number one, I'm told water helps. You know, you may have heard of steam bending, but the other thing the water does, other than assisting with the bending, is stopping the wood from burning, because it's getting quite hot under this heat gun. I'm going to go find a big piece that I can clamp here to hold this in place while it dries and settles, whatever that means. I just made that up. That might be enough. Yeah, that's not bad at all, if I do say so myself. I just hope it works out. I hope that when it's unclamped, it will hold that bend somehow. But that looks all right to me. Okay, I will hit it a bit more with the heat gun just to help it to dry, although it's a thin piece, it will dry up pretty quickly. And I will take a look at this tomorrow and see how it looks. Well, it's the following day. I've taken the clamps and the pipe off, obviously. I've given the veneer, I'm calling it a veneer even though it's a bit thicker than most veneers, given the veneer a good proper dry with the heat gun, and now I'm using just a couple of pieces of scrap wood to clamp it down onto the headstock to get it used to sitting in that position. Okay, slightly dreading this because, you know, it could all go sideways and I could ruin it. Obviously, I hope that doesn't happen. So I'm prepared with a variety of clamps. I'll just get a couple more, some glue and some string. And the string is there just because I've noticed that I get a better mating of the surfaces, mating, when there is a bit of pressure applied that way. So the string will be tied to the end of the neck down here. Let's just see how it goes. Maybe I won't clamp it to the bench. Maybe I will think out loud as I go. Maybe I will put small clamps all around it. Cautiously optimistic at this stage, but the problem area is going to be down here. The flat section is easy. Maybe okay. Touch wood, there's a fair bit of it around. I will leave that overnight and take a look tomorrow. Will I be able to get any sleep? We'll see. It's a few hours later and, well, almost 3 hours. And I have to know how this went, so I'm just going to take a look. Right now it's like Schrodinger's glue job. I don't know if it worked or not, maybe both. No, not both. Let's find out. Now that side is absolutely flawless. This side, there's just the tiniest of gaps. But you know what? Oops. I'm going to be trimming and doing some resanding. And when I do, I think I'll show you what I'm talking about. See that side there? That's let's get some focus. That's perfect. There are no gaps at all there. And on this side, there's just one little area there where there is a teensy tiny gap. When I'm trimming and resanding that, I will be able to use the old dust and glue trick to fill that, and you won't even know. I'm pretty sure that's the case. I think this is going to turn out right. But I'm not going to do all that trimming tonight. Watch this space, but I'm quite pleased. It's not going to be so straightforward to route that off, so I will I'll think about that. I'll get a little saw, a little hand saw, and cut that and sand the edges. Yeah, that'll be fine. But look, yeah, can't complain about that. Obviously this whole thing's going to have to be refinished, so I'm not worried about scrapes and scratches on it. One of the spindles on my spindle sander is just the right size for sanding in this curved area. You know, the decision to build guitars is the decision to do a lot of sanding. So I'm going to just keep doing this for a while. Sanding isn't the most riveting of viewing, but you get the idea. There's quite a bit of this to be done, even for a relatively small job. I have to make some holes in this, don't I? Because there are tuner holes that are now covered up, and truss rod access, which is a piece of cake. I just have to clear off my bench and do it. When you're drilling out tuner holes, or any kind of hole really, it's a wise idea, especially if you've got an additional layer on the surface, to press the object that you're drilling into down hard onto another object to discourage the wood breaking through and tearing out chunks on the other side. Of course, the other thing to do is to make sure you've got a fairly sharp drill bit to avoid that as well. There we go. And now I just need to get the hole there for the access, and I have a method planned to do that. I was going to record that process, not explain every step, but just record me doing it, but then I realized that on that router sled the bit wasn't going to reach down far enough to make contact with the headstock, so I just positioned the router somewhat precariously on these two pieces of wood. They're not scrap wood pieces, they're nice pieces of rosewood, but I haven't dressed them up yet. And anyway, I managed to get it done. So there is the truss rod access. I'm going to give everything a final sand. But there we are. I'll finish this video now because it has been fairly involved, but it went really well. That was my, I was going to say harebrained, it wasn't harebrained. That was my idea of putting a piece of elm on the headstock to match the rest of the guitar. Speaking of which, where is the rest of the guitar? I'll just have it sitting side by side now to show you. And there it is, so you can see how it all makes sense. It doesn't come from the same piece of elm, or if it does, it's quite a different part of it. But it's, you know, similar enough. So that will be in there, and continuity thus. Okay, when I come back in the next video, I guess I'll do the main routing and the rest of the shaping on the body. I might even finish the guitar because it's not really that far off, so we'll see how we go.